how do musicians learn their craft? How do they arrive at mastery? Well, generally speaking, there are two paths: classical training, think conservatories like Berklee College of Music or the Juilliard School, or the self-taught route that's common in popular music. You learn by listening to records, copying by ear, taking some classes maybe, watching YouTube videos, basically on your own. So when I meet a musician who can live in both worlds, who can read notation just as easily as a number chart, I'm instantly intrigued. Because these approaches are very different from each other, with very different schools of thought about what musical greatness is. Nashville's string scene has exploded in recent years, and I've been fortunate to meet some of these rare musicians who move seamlessly between classical and popular music. When I encounter someone who can nail a Bach piece, then turn around and play the fire out of a country or pop song, that fascinates me. Because when I grew up, you were either one or the other. Cellist, composer, session player, and multi-instrumentalist Matthew Nelson is one of these rare both-and musicians. Whether you need a Bach cello suite or a cello overdub for your pop or country song, Matt delivers in spades. His range is remarkable. He's probably best known for co-composing the score for the hit series The Chosen with Dan Hasseltine, but he's equally at home on records by J.D. Souther, Anderson East, Michael W. Smith, and hooray for the Riff Raff. He's toured with everybody from Amy Grant to Sleeping at Last to Stephen Curtis Chapman and Cheap Trick. And he's performed on stages from the Grand Ole Opry to NBC's Today, Late Night with Seth Meyers, The Ellen DeGeneres Show, and NPR's Mountain Stage. Matthew brings both deep musicianship and genuine humility to this conversation, with plenty of insights about the nuts and bolts of making great music. So be inspired and check out this conversation with Matthew Nelson. Matt, one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you on my podcast was I've not had a lot of experience with the type of musical animal you are. And that is that you are an eye and an ear player. And I'm fascinated by that because I think the way I've come up through the ranks, you're either one or the other. You either read notation or you play, as they say, by ear. You improvise, or you read number charts. You either read number charts or notation charts.
Right.
But you are so good at both, and that is fascinating to me. And I think there's just so many points of interest in this topic for people, for young people who are students, for people who are firmly in one camp, shall we say, or the other. So right off the bat, I wanted to dive deep into the pool with you and see what is your training, what is your education, what does your learning curve look like that you become so good. I would even say intimidating for me because I am not a notation reader. I mean, I can read it when I'm writing a string arrangement or something, but just to sit down and play it cold and nail it. And some of those can get pretty sophisticated and then turn around and be handed a number chart for a pop, country, whatever song and play a part. Basically, you're creating a part. So what does that look like? How do you get that good at both of those disciplines?
I, first of all, feel flattered I feel honored to be having a conversation with you here. And I'm flattered that you think so highly of what I can do. I don't think about it a lot. I think because I've just sort of I've grown up with this. So I don't really know. I can't step outside myself and see it from the outside.
That's so interesting. Oh my gosh.
My parents were I mean, really, that's the first place I would point blame for all of for any of the gifts is my parents, and particularly my dad, I think, but they were
How
both
so?
my parents were both brass players. My dad was a trumpet player, and he was both my parents were public school music teachers, and my
Wow.
dad was my dad was wanted to be like an orchestral trumpeter. He wanted to be, in the Chicago Symphony or something. And
Is that where you grew up?
no, I grew up in Ohio, but Chicago
Ah,
Symphony's like, I mean, one of the best orchestras in the world. So
yes.
he, I think at some point figured out that there's usually maybe at most four four trumpets in a symphony orchestra, and
Wow.
it would be, yeah, I mean, talk about odds
Woo.
and competition for landing a seat in something like that. And I think he wisely figured out that the odds were against him,
Hmm.
for getting a seat like that. So he went into education, and but he was always so he was a very serious, classically trained trumpet player, and
Hmm.
and but also had he had the jazz bone.
Mm.
He had the love for improvisation, and he wasn't really a jazz head, but he was but he played that music. I mean, he played in jazz ensembles, and he actually was on a gig when I was like a toddler. He was on a gig for Dizzy Gillespie, and he
Wow.
was like a local hired gun for a gig. And
Right.
so there's a photograph or two of me sitting on Dizzy Gillespie's lap, which is
Oh,
pretty
I
amazing.
love it.
So that's kind of, I think that's where I get that interest from. I think to have an ear for what's happening with music outside of the dots that are on a page.
Mhm.
But I really didn't. My dad had this, like before bedtime, we had this like little father son ritual that he had like a 2-chord jazz progression, and we my fingers they were like minor seventh chords in the right hand, and my fingers were too small to play all 4 notes at first, so I could only sort of do the triads. but he
Wait a minute.
taught
What instrument are you talking about here?
piano.
Oh, okay.
So we used to sit at the
Wow.
piano at night before I went to bed. I mean, I was probably 4 years old or something, and
Wow.
and he was trying to teach me how to improvise and say, okay, you can improvise on all the white keys, and this is an easy chord progression. So if you just kind of, and so of course, as a kid, the first thing I went for was a black key, trying to getting a lot of amusement out of trying to find the wrong notes to play. But
Wow.
yeah, that was. But I mean, I think I get all that straight from my dad. And then I started playing cello when I was about 9 years old, 9 or 10, in a public school orchestra, and that was I mean, that was classical training from the beginning. So it was
Hmm.
everything was reading, and it wasn't really until I got into, like, when I became a teenager, I got into guitar, and a lot of my friends were, and that's just like rock and roll. We're learning songs off the radio and songs from records that we loved. And so ear training stuff. And it wasn't really until I got into high school that I started playing cello in a different context than just a classical ensemble or solo stuff. I had a church. There was a church band, and once or twice a year they got together, like an unplugged. MTV Unplugged was big then, and so they wanted to do unplugged band thing, and thought it would be cool, as many people do, to have a cello. And so I hadn't really played cello in that context before, but I knew enough. I had a music theory course in high school, which I think I was really lucky to have, because a lot of students don't get that. But I had one music theory course, and enough to understand triad construction and to know just the building blocks. And so looking at a chord chart was like, okay, we're in the key of A. I know the key signature of the key of A. Here's the chord progression. So if the first chord is an A, if I want to stay in the triad, I can play an A, a C sharp, or an E, and then sort of voice lead from there, find my way through the chord progression as the song goes. So it was really, but I guess there's also, because it's not just paint by numbers, there was, I'm not really sure what helped me find my way into creating a line out of that instead of just math,
Yes.
So I'm not really sure. I guess that must just be blood instinct from my dad, and then hanging out with my friends, listening to a lot of that music and kind of understanding how melody and parts work in a non-classical world.
Right. It seems to me, Matt, that there was enough of a presence of cello in popular recordings that, and that's totally how I learned to play, which I've learned to share in some circles and not share in other circles. Oh, the hell with it. At this point, I'm good. I have no investment in that. But taste, I think I'm super curious how you learn taste, particularly if you're a lot of the times, right, in a pop song arrangement, whether it's country, folk, pop, whatever, you're kind of hanging with the bass notes, whether they're playing a root or an inversion of the root or in the chord. But what blows me away, and you do this, I've not met a lot, where a cello player will kind of venture out at certain points in the song and play a little line, like as a fill. We used to call them fills. Or to get from, and that is such an art. I love that art. And it seems to bring together both classical training, music theory, and I also throw in the word taste in there, because you can overplay, you can underplay. Does the line make sense? Does it join two things together, right?
Yep. That's, man, what an elusive thing to even try to talk about, because I went through the same progression that any young musician goes through, which is get enamored by guys that have crazy chops, try to play the fastest, craziest shit you can play, and then right. and then at some point go I don't have to do all that. And in fact, not that many people want to hear all that.
Right. Maybe there's a time and a place, but we've probably all played with players that want to, whether it's out of insecurity or ego or whatever, want to insert Again, I go back to taste. There may be a time and a place for a drummer to play like Buddy Rich, but it's probably not on a Coldplay song.
Probably not. Yeah, that's really hard to. I wonder. I heard this. I remember this interview that I saw with Bruce Willis, and he was talking about acting, and he was talking about how he, like, I think maybe when he started, he did too much. He, overacted, and he was saying at the point of this interview, he was saying, I like to do as little as possible now. And
wow,
I like to see how little I can get away with. And he said, like, sometimes I have gone too far and I see something back or I watch something back and go, oh yeah, it's probably it's a little too still, but that, I like to think about that with, what's necessary. And, and it's not a black and white rule of, it's a dance. So
totally.
Yeah.
Don't you think, Matt, that I just feel like I'm one of these guys that I think now is a great time to be making music. We'll get to the challenges, financial and otherwise, in a minute. But for recording equipment to be so democratized, and if you really want to record, you can do it. You can get GarageBand or some program. Don't you think that just being able to listen to yourself back can teach you volumes of what feels appropriate? I mean, if you have any shred of objectivity, if you can just be honest, like, well, maybe I think there's a great reference with Bruce Willis talking about overacting, and the older he gets, the less he does. It's never fails to amaze me how powerful simple lines can be. And there is such a thing sometime, I know from my own experience, as being maybe too simple or too elemental. But man, I think from my experience, it's been much easier to be too verbose. Yeah?
Yeah, definitely. That's recording. I mean, my teachers, my cello teachers and other, classical teachers, I mean, that's like huge. You should get into the practice of recording yourself and listening.
Wow.
Even if it's, I think all my cello teachers talked about that. And it doesn't even, I mean, then it was like cassette tape recorder, like have your like practice cassette and pop it in and put it on the other side of the room and play the line and listen to yourself. But yeah, it's like a mirror basically. And my college orchestra director said that if you want to know how well you're communicating a line, just record yourself and listen to it, and it will tell you you'll hear all of the speed bumps in there that you're making, and then iron it out and until you're hearing back what you think you're expressing. So it's like, it's kind of, the dancer rehearsing in front of a mirror. It's that kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. I not to overglorify technology, but I tell people, being a band leader for years and working with a lot of musicians, a lot of singers, let's say a singer comes through and they actually have a good instrument, their tone, like, yeah, there's definitely something there, but let's say they have a pitch problem. I always tell them that one of the best voice teachers is right in your pocket. Just record yourself singing, maybe, I don't know, put a record on in the background, but hear yourself. If you're honest, it will tell you. And what I've found to be the case with me, I've made myself, when I'm going to do a song somewhere, I make myself play it into my iPhone with a guitar or piano. And it always brings to the surface problem areas. And almost always it's a section that I didn't think was very challenging.
Wow.
Like if you got a high note or you got a tricky passage, you'll think, well, that's where I'm probably going to be pitchy or rush or drag. But I found it's usually not those passages. Maybe because I'm concentrating on those, but there's a little flourish here or a lyric there that, like, whoa, that's, it's just an incredible tool, right? To sharpen you.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me ask you something, man, because I've heard this all my life when a singer or a musician says, I've been classically trained, and I have not been. I've been an OCD taker-inner of music, trying to copy what I've heard since I was a kid. But what is that? I've also heard, you probably know this person in Nashville who's a great violinist. She said, well, I can tell you why we're so good, because we didn't have a childhood. And that's what they told me.
Oh, that's great.
And another guy told me, Boudleaux Bryant told me years ago, he said, yeah, well, you're just playing scales. But those both seem, they're probably truth in both of them. But what does that mean if you're classically trained? What does that mean?
I think it just means that trained according to the classical tradition. And it's an evolving thing that is, that started hundreds of years ago and then has been developed over hundreds of years, but has roots that go back a long way. And in the case of, in the case of like string players, it goes back to the invention of those instruments or the development of those instruments out of the gamba family and whatever. And then people develop out of, it's just one particular tradition of teaching and learning. And that's really it. I don't think it's anything more than that.
Well, as an ear player and an improviser, it blows me away to watch you guys that have been classically trained. I mean, you're like machines at a certain level, and you're at that level. But I'm like, wow, it's just so precise, and you just feel such discipline in it that the last time you and I played together, I was watching you and you put your finger in the freaking middle of the fretboard and it was right on. I'm like, oh my gosh. I used to play some violin and fiddle, like mostly in live shows. And now I kind of do in the studio. I have a violin that I use and an octave lower strings on another violin that's kind of nice.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, it's fun. But man, I am not where you are, where you just go, bam. The pitch is perfect. The tone, the bow technique, whoo, it's a lot, man. I think that training involves, there's a lot of aspects to your discipline.
Yeah, that's true. And I was so young when I started playing the cello that it just developed over such a long period of time that I don't really often think about how complicated it is to play a bowed string instrument. There's a lot of moving parts. I mean, a lot of moving parts in the body. It's just like the coordination and muscle group coordination that has to happen for it to work is complex. And then on top of that, there's I think it takes so much to maybe that's partially what people mean when they talk about being classically trained, is really just kind of like training the body to be able to play the instrument. And then after that, it's I think for a lot of classical musicians, it's like technique and discipline first, and then actual musical expression a lot later. A lot of I mean, I guess I could just pick on. I think a lot of classical musicians are this way, but string players maybe especially are like just sort of get like a dysfunction where I became so overly concerned with the technique and the execution that I actually expressing something musical or human was the second priority for most of my learning years, and right. probably wasn't until after college that I think, or maybe toward the end of college, that I started figuring out that maybe perfect execution is not the most valuable thing to shoot for as a musician. But it's all a dance, I guess.
I think it, again, to your credit and the other people that I've met who are like you, which are not a lot, I'll be honest. Or maybe I just need to get out more. I don't know. It takes a certain open-mindedness and that's another thing I really appreciate about you. And I've met others like you here in Nashville, which, I mean, let's be honest. I heard somebody, I think it was in the Scene last year, somebody wrote that Nashville isn't like the championship game, it's the Olympics. And you just meet so many gifted and skilled players here. It's ridiculous.
It really is.
But one thing I've appreciated from you, and honestly a lot of the players around town, is I never get a sense of ego from you, like a neediness, but even moreover, because of your training and the way you've come up, I never feel you being condescending to
thanks.
us players that didn't come up that way. And I know that probably sounds silly to you because you're such a good-natured sort, but that means a lot, and it makes for some beautiful collaborations, which I just love hybrids. I love seeing cellos and rock bands and country bands or bluegrass bands.
Yeah.
I just think the blending of those worlds can be really compelling.
Me too. I love I mean, well, as reflected in my career, but I love the use of cello in non-classical situations, and there's so much the range of expression is I mean, I think that's one of the things about, we were talking about the classical tradition and all that, because the priority for like classical music students is like there is a right way, and we're going to teach it to you, and then you will know the right way to play. And but those things, those priorities that are passed down don't stay the same over over the centuries, they change, and the priorities for the classical tradition change over time with the times. And so, but when I was, and it's funny to not realize how those things change until having a little bit of space from the tradition. Because when I was coming up studying cello, and really kind of still is the priority for cellists is like the Bach suites and like romantic concertos. Those are like the big things. But the romantic concertos are, the priorities for tone are like projection, power, speed, big singing sound, big vibrato. It's a great sound, but it's one sound. So there's all this stuff like outside of that is like the range of expression is, if you can get outside of that world and let yourself explore some other timbres and ways of expressing, then it's just kind of like thinking that singing opera is the only good way to be a singer. And then like, like start listening to Bob Dylan and go like, wow, there's this whole other palette of colors to express with. And, it's really, that's what I think continues to inspire me is different languages, different colors, different, what is there out here to play with in the world.
Wow. I love that. I love the way you think about that. That's so, it pushes the parameters so much wider than any, you can be a purist, you can be a fundamentalist in any style, right? From opera to bluegrass.
Absolutely.
But, I remember, man, buying a single by a bluegrass group called Red, White, and Bluegrass. They had a hit when I was a teenager called July, You're a Woman. Or maybe it was on the album. But there was an album, they did like a waltz. I think it was called 9 Years Waltz, I think. And it was a bluegrass band with a string section behind it. And it made such an impression on me. I was probably only like, 16, 17, but I loved that. I loved bringing those two worlds together. And there you have, even with a fiddle, two different string players who are completely different backgrounds, but the blending of it's just this gorgeous thing. But I love how you're referencing singers and it kind of blows me away. I read a history of music book. I forget the name of the book. History of Music, maybe. But how young it is. It's like, you just said a few hundred years, but you go back much before Bach and it gets super, super primitive. Am I right?
Yeah. That's my understanding of it. Really, and that's the other piece of it is this tradition is like comes from Western Europe and it's not that old. So, in comparison to humans making music on planet Earth, it's not that old. But the monophonic chant, music, which really is sort of like the beginning of Western art music. It's funny how the history of that is basically synonymous with the history of the church in Europe, that it all grows at the same time. And so that at least the study of that history, that's what it's connected to, is church history. So the monophonic chant, it's a beautiful history. I love all that music. I love the history of Western classical music, but there are other things that people have been doing for a lot longer that I don't know so much about, that I would love to learn more about.
In that same book I read, it talked about, and not to discount anything you just said, because I'm fascinated with that whole history, and a lot of it did come out of the church. Obviously, a lot of the top composers were employed. That's where their patrons were, right? But that it also exposes some kind of superstitions and kind of goofy dogmas. That one of the things that blew me away was way early when they sang in octaves, right? And anything apart from that was seen as sinful, which just blew me away.
So funny. Yeah, well, I know. I'm really curious about, I've been curious about, because, I work, one of my primary things now is writing music for a Jesus television show. And,
oh, wow.
So it's not a documentary, but it does make me curious about, I wish there were some records available of music that would have existed,
right,
in the period. But, yeah, it really makes me wonder often about what would harmony have looked like. It was there. I find it hard to believe that no one sang in harmony before the Renaissance.
Right.
That seems like that can't be right. But
it's pretty mind-boggling.
But like, as far as what harmony would have been in existence at that, but what would have sounded consonant to the ears of people in the first century in that part of the world? I don't know. I don't know.
Wouldn't that be amazing if we could hear recordings? That's such a great idea.
Gosh, it would be cool.
It blows me away.
Man. And of course, there are recordings of people who are saying that they this is ancient music, and but somehow it always sounds pretty modern, and I suspect that they don't realize how much of their modern sensibilities they're just sort of slathering over, even if maybe the notation's old or something like that. Still just
right.
Sounds kind of like a Latin rhythm. Where did that come from? I think that came more from modern centuries.
Right. Tell us about, I would think it'd be an interesting bringing together of your skills to do composition, to do composing for television or film, whatever format this is. But that's a whole other thing. How has that been for you? What's that experience been like in terms of you're bringing your pop background, your classical background? What does that look like, bringing all that together?
Huge learning curve. But it's sort of like, if the only thing I'm doing is playing on a record or writing a song, the totality of the work is contained here in this, maybe just in this circle. Here's the work. Everything I'm doing is in here. But with music in a production like that, it's the work is much bigger, and music is just sort of one little thing in the bigger picture. So it's a part of the work and not like the totality of the artistic offering. So the priorities are kind of different, which is maybe like um, you can have more nuance because
Mm.
because the music doesn't have to. It's probably not good if it carries all of the attention or attracts all of the attention of a viewer. So that's nice that there doesn't have to be like a pop hook every 8 seconds or something to hold somebody's attention.
Right.
But it's challenging in that the emotional cues that the music really should be paying attention to are sometimes really hidden, and to try to find those emotional cues to then first of all to become aware of them as the composer, and then and then figure out which ones we want to try to underline and which of the important things that are happening here that we might want to draw a line under to cue the audience to pay attention to this thing. Or it's like the most it's definitely the most challenging musical thing I think I've ever done, because
Wow.
like classical music to me feels like somewhat I'm not trying to minimize it. I think maybe just my experience with it seems somewhat turnkey, that if you spend enough time in the practice room and you kind of like know what you want to say with the piece, it's just a matter of putting in the time to be able to execute the piece well technically, and then to be able to articulate emotionally what I want to say with that piece. So it's sort of a function of time to me. Spend enough time in the practice room, get the stuff down, and then sort of tweak the emotional expression. But this is it's like maybe a little more linear of a process, at least the way I think about it. I don't think the masters of classical music are that small-minded about it. So I'm not trying to minimize the craft, but
Right. Sure.
But the musical challenge to me of the scoring to picture thing is just it's so much more complex and nuanced, and there are 100 different ways to, as many composers as there are that many ways to slice up a scene and write a cue, and everybody's gonna find something different in it and bring something different out.
That's really well said. I always feel like composing has been the invisible through line of my career, really for about 30 years, with some downtime in that span. But I love it. It may be my favorite way to employ my skills is composing, right, for TV. Or I haven't done that much film, but a lot more TV. And there was one guy, a friend of mine who's a composer, was working with a lot of times just the language you're using, like how are we going to communicate? What do you want? And this guy said the producer of the show, no, the director of the show in the editing room said, "Could you make this a little more green?" He said, and then he said, "You're giving me chrome and I'm wanting polished brass." So, but I even love those conversations. But man, talk about the impact, Matt, of a simplistic, just not simplistic, simple, just a chord progression or a rhythm. And because we're usually underneath dialogue, right? You can't compete. You can't make it too lyrical to compete with that dialogue.
Right.
My mind has routinely been blown by the impact of music in a scene. And we're as we record this episode, we're in the midst of, I think, everybody going crazy over the score for Severance.
Oh, right? Yeah, right.
And it is so minimal and cool and tricked my ear. Actually, we can talk about that. I thought sure it was doing like a minor, then with a 3 flat major, a 2 major to a 2 flat major, and it wasn't at all. It's a 4 sharp major, 4 sharp major to a 4 major to a 6 flat minor. It's just the perfect sequence under that show. But I think it's a great example of the power that something that simple can just infuse into a scene, right?
Absolutely. And that little that little 3-note motif that's in there that is, well, actually it's not just a 3-note motif, but there's that, and then there's sort of a longer version of it, but it's
right. And there's a piano lyrical thing that comes in.
Yeah.
It's also really cool.
It's so
But I
cool.
do think it's a good study for how powerful music is in the final output of a project.
I agree. That's a really great score. I've also been enjoying White Lotus season 3 is I think it's been the same composer every season. It definitely sounds like the same composer, but it is wild and alien and dark and fun, and that's maybe a little different end of the spectrum than Severance, but gosh, yeah, I just love. I'm with you. I didn't know when I started into this kind of work how much I would. I knew it would be fun to try to engage in it and learn how to do it on any level, but I didn't know how much I was gonna fall in love with the challenge and the mysterious process that it all is. And it felt like the hardest thing I'd ever done before. And it also felt like the thing maybe that on some level I was born to do this. This just feels so natural to me to, and maybe that's partly I get to exercise my empathy muscle, and that's
so good. Yeah,
that's the thing. And that's what, I mean, I don't think, not that you don't get to do that on like a pop record or as a session musician or something, but it's different. It doesn't require the same care and the same observing and really trying to get down into the essence of something.
It's like you bring all your sensibilities.
Yep.
And like you say, by the way, it's not just your musical sensibilities. It gets translated through that.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Not to mention,
wow.
I mean, not to mention the technical skills involved in the massive kind of technical learning curve of trying to figure out how to do all this stuff, how to manage all the files.
You're talking about the actual recording equipment.
Right. Yeah.
Totally.
On a technical end too. It's kind of just, it's the perfect storm of all the things that I'm interested in. And yeah.
Totally. I remember this is in the year 2000. This is early on in digital recording, right? And the producers of the show were about 200 miles away. This is when we're, again, way on the early end. This is FTP era, file transfer protocol, where you would upload a track, they would pull it down. So they sent me the track and I played some instrument on it. I uploaded it, they pulled it down, and we're on a live phone call. And I'll never, ever forget that everybody in that suite was standing around the console when they dropped the part in and played it, and everybody just applauded because it blew my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just did a session. Not only was I not in the room, I was 200 miles away. And that, I just fell in love with it, man. And I know it's a double-edged sword. I know it's been a challenge to the way a lot of our friends make their living. I get it. And they have my empathy for sure. But it's so creative. And I got to ask you about, there's a female cellist. I think she's either in Greenland or Iceland, Matt. Have you heard of this?
Mm-hmm. I know exactly who
Hildur,
you're talking about.
Is her name Hildur?
Oh, yeah. I think so, yeah. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. She does like
layers and layers of cello, right?
Yeah. She's the first thing I was aware of that she scored was the Chernobyl the yes. limited Chernobyl series. And
yes,
I think we were just starting to work on, I was kind of like really just getting my feet wet in the whole scoring world, and listen to a podcast. I don't know if it was a podcast interview. I think it was a podcast interview with her talking about the Chernobyl score and some of the stuff that they did, and the creative mind is she's a genius and very creative and thoughtful, and really cool. And then of course she's done like Joker and I don't know, a bunch of other stuff now, but I don't know what she did before. Well, actually, no, she was kind of she worked with Jóhann, how do you say his last name?
Jóhannsson.
Thank you. Of course, yes.
I was just listening to him yesterday. Wow.
Yeah, she was, I think she was kind of part of his circle of folks before she started composing herself. But yeah, brilliant.
It's so brilliant. And I love, again, I know I tend to over-romanticize this and all due empathy to people who are dealing with the challenges that this new way of, it's not so new anymore, but, the era we're in. And I want to touch on this before we close. But I love that she has a shot, She's not in LA. She's not in New York.
Yeah.
And that I just feel like if you really want to do this, and again, let me just set aside the financial side of it for a second. You can do it. You can get some kind of computer, right, with a recording program on it, and I love that one of your classical teachers said, go record yourself. Mm-hmm. But as you grow in that, and I really would encourage musicians, get familiar with the technology, man, because it's the keys to the highway. But I was blown away. That Chernobyl score, I think I don't know if it was that or Joker, but she's just creating and breaking rules, from the history of what it means to be a film composer.
Yeah.
And that excites me to see that kind of creativity being unleashed to a global pool of musicians.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I love I'm inspired by the outside the box thinking, and
exactly. Yes.
But it's also like I'm inspired by out of the box thinking, but I am also the guy who loves AC/DC. So I love it when
talk to us.
I love it when a thing is exactly what it says on the tin. I love knowing that every AC/DC song I ever listen to is going to sound like AC/DC. And so there's some weird inner conflict dance for me about like press forward, find new innovative things. But I think that sometimes people can get lost trying to find something that's new instead of sometimes there's nothing wrong with the old way of doing it. But
totally.
But it is a dance. It's a dance. Yeah.
I love talking to a cellist who's into AC/DC. That's what I'm talking about. I love it.
Oh, I love that band so much.
Oh my gosh. What an amazing story.
I've been trying to like quantify like what is it about, because there are other things that I'm kind of put off by that are not unlike AC/DC, maybe philosophically or something, but there's something about a band like AC/DC that is like, I know exactly what this is going to be, and this makes me feel something good. It makes me feel grounded and embodied, and I know exactly how the song is going to end, and it's great. It's a whole thing.
I love it. I love that you love that. That actually is, I think, a peek inside your heart and soul, that you just such a broad range of taste. I love that, man. I love that. I've never been a purist about just about anything, but definitely not about music. And that's where I've kind of run aground. If you get into camps that, you know, I came up through country music. It was keep it country, keep it country. I'm like, yeah, I can't, you know? And I can go down the hardcore country rabbit hole all night long. But then I loved, you mentioned, is his name Jóhann Jóhannsson? Is that who we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
He has a piece, Matt. There's two pieces. I can't remember. I just heard the other one the other day. It's on the same album. But there's a piece on that album called Flight from the City.
Okay.
That is incredible about, it's this like the same piano phrase over and over, but it lands on a different chord at the end of the phrase.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's a study in the emotion that different chord progressions evoke.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first time he may land on a 1, then a 4 over a 1, then a 2 minor. And they're radically different, even though it's the same melody. That's one of my favorite pieces.
Which what record is that on?
I'm going to look it up while we're talking.
Yeah.
It's just one of my favorites.
Was it from?
Just listen to it.
Yeah. What's the movie he scored that I'm? My brain says Contact, but it's not Contact. Arrival. That's the name of the movie.
Right. The album I'm talking about is, I think it's spelled Orphee, Orphee,
okay.
Orphee or Orphee.
I don't know. It's some Icelandic stuff.
Yeah.
That's Hildur,
Flight
though?
from the City. Huh?
That's Hildur?
No, this is Jóhann
Okay.
Jóhannsson. And the other tune on here is, wow, this is a freaking long title. It's By the Rose and By the Hinds of the Field.
Wow.
Both are just masterful pieces.
Man.
And I think he's passed, right?
Yeah. Not that long ago either. Like 2017 or 2018.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, it
remember.
was very recently.
Yeah. I know it was recent, right?
I don't want to leave this conversation without asking you, because we're in such challenging times for musicians.
Yeah.
Financially, between streaming.
Yeah.
I look at the royalty rate on my BMI from a piece that I have on a TV show that's on cable.
Yep.
Versus the same exact piece and the same exact show on streaming.
Man.
And oh my gosh, Matt, it's not even a tenth of it. It's a micro penny.
Quite
right?
different, I'm sure.
So what, we're probably speaking to some people out there who are curious about being full-time musicians, or maybe just curious about musicians. What's this experience like for you, being a professional musician? Two-part question: the viability of it, and how, I know you're on the road now and then anyway, how do you harmonize that with a marriage? Or, being with a significant other doesn't have to be a marriage.
Yes. The first part of the question was about
the financial side.
Doing the professional musician thing. Man, this is probably going to sound like a cop-out of an answer, but I promise it's not. I read, I obsessively read all the stuff about sort of like how to be your own music boss, and your guerrilla marketing handbooks and all that sort of hustle mentality. I read all that stuff, but there is some mysterious process that, or some mysterious grace that I think carries a person from having an ambition or a desire to do this kind of work to the point where the person's actually making a living and paying the bills doing it. And I do not know what that process is. And I think it is different for everybody. And I think that there are probably some people who get there in a paint by numbers kind of way, but that did not work for me. I hit this, I was getting just enough work, with local indie scene, when I first started. I was getting just enough.
You mind me? Where was that?
That was here. I finished school at MTSU, and then I kind of got. This is part of the power of the idea of exponential growth, that if you play a gig with one guy and it works, then pretty soon 3 of that person's friends are also artists and want you to play with them or play on their records. And then 3 from each of those people also catch wind that you do this and maybe like what you do. And then ideally it becomes like you're busy enough that you have to say no to some things. And so I was kind of like in this indie pop scene in Nashville for a little while, and that was right. But the problem with that is that I was doing enough of that work that I couldn't afford the time to hold down a job, but I wasn't making enough money playing with these artists to pay my to like really pay my bills. And
Right.
so I was in this weird teeter-totter thing, and I can't really pinpoint at what point I was able to pay my bills, but at some point in there, it flipped money-wise through some mysterious process that all of a sudden I could pay my bills just doing music stuff. And I don't know how that happens. I wish I had like a better a better answer for someone who is wondering if it's going to happen for them or how.
Well, I think at least it's a safe bet to say you definitely put yourself out there.
I did put myself out there. Yes. But I don't really, we've been talking this whole conversation about how many amazingly gifted people there are in Nashville. And so like, it would be stupid of me to say that I'm somehow more deserving of this opportunity that I've found than anybody else. 'Cause there are folks who do what I do way better than me. And there are also people doing it for a living who probably like us. I mean, that was an encouraging thing that I heard coming up, was that people always said like, there's always someone better than you. But there are also always people who are not as good as you, who are probably making a lot of money doing it.
Yes.
So it's kind of like take a middle seat on the bus, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So getting to the partnership question, and harmonizing, it was a lot more difficult to do when I was on the road more regularly. I'm not gone as much now, in the last couple of years as I was before that. But when I met my wife, I was real busy and on the road a lot. So we kind of just, I kind of said like, if quality time is a thing that is really important to you, then I don't know if I am going to be the ideal partner for you to be able to meet that. And because this work that I do is a thing that I love, and it's kind of part of who I am. And, but we just gotta we gotta talk about it. We gotta keep talking about it as our relationship develops. And if at some point in there you go, I don't think I can handle this because you're gone too much, then it won't work. Fortunately, I'm married to a person who has always been really supportive and really gracious about the time that it takes to pursue this kind of work and do it. But she's also got boundaries and feelings about all this stuff too. And, so that's been like the growing edge for me, is because like, of course, early on, there's like, I have to say yes to everything. I have to, if I don't say yes to this, no one's going to call me again. And this sort of fear of, what do you call that? Scarcity, right?
Yes.
And, not that there's no reality to scarcity, because I think there is, but this fear motivation that says, if I don't say yes to everything, then no one's going to call me. But
Totally.
I think that's a thing that a good partner can help put some perspective to for a person, is
totally
my wife going, it's okay if you it's okay if you get a sub for your gig so that you can go to a wedding or a funeral or you don't have to miss your entire life because you're afraid of not getting a call for a gig.
Right.
So yeah, that's, which at times has been like challenging for me. But the more time goes on and the longer that we're together, the more I appreciate the boundaries that she helps me set and supports me in with, kind of work home harmony.
I love that you use, this has become not a pet peeve, but a point of contention for me. I love that you use the word harmony. I don't like the term work-life balance because my experience is never 50-50, almost never 50-50. Sometimes it's 80-20, sometimes it's 99-1, sometimes it's 199.
Yeah, where did you hear it? Because I know where I heard harmony rather than balance.
I think it was in a book called Getting Things Done like 20 years ago.
Wow.
And not trying to balance it's impossible to balance all these plates, but you can harmonize all these things you want to do.
Wow.
That was a big distinction that really helped me a lot.
Man, I heard it in an interview with Jeff Bezos.
Really?
And I'm a politically left-leaning person, and I know I'm supposed to hate the billionaire class and Jeff Bezos. But there was a little piece, it's a little soundbite from an interview that I saw once with him talking about his kind of daily thing and and he used the word harmony and said that he preferred it over the word balance. And he probably got it from the same book you did, but it really resonated with me and feels like,
yes,
that's, yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to learn from anybody. Wisdom is wisdom, right?
Yep.
Regardless of somebody's political leaning. But that's really helped me, and it's helped our marriage, because I'm not on the road much at all like you these days. But there was a time when I was gone almost all the time.
Man, I bet.
And we figured out things. She would fly out and meet me on occasion, not a lot, but yeah. I want to circle back to something you just said that I think for musicians out there who are wondering, should I get married? Does this mean I should live, I should never get married? Wow. My wife, Cindy, has spoken truth to me so many times, and I'm so grateful, especially for the times when she spoke truth to me that I did not want to hear.
Yeah.
And that can be true. You don't have to be a musician to have that in
Oh, man.
Because, and maybe let's be honest, the younger, more ego-driven version of myself was like, damn it, you just don't understand. You don't understand. And I totally get, Matt, you saying you said yes to everything. Ditto, because it's a risky professional choice, right?
Absolutely.
It's a risk.
Yep.
And you feel that. We feel that. In fact, I think as musicians that rely on sensitivity, which that's another word that I think needs to be retranslated to the culture. It doesn't mean you're weak or you're squeamish. It means you pick up on things, that you have a sensitive radar.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we have to be sensitive, but man, having somebody to speak truth to us, whether that's your partner or whoever, is so insanely valuable.
Yeah. I think about getting married, and I definitely agree. It's a lifestyle choice, absolutely. So I also get that there are, I know it's like some great musicians who are in my life who like have done the road thing a lot, and they've just stayed single. And that's
Sure.
I think that works for some people too. I think it's a mistake to feel like I have to give up being married or give up having a family in order to do this kind of work. There's a real good friend of mine who kind of just got passed over on a gig, I think because his wife is expecting their first baby. Which it's a little more complicated than that. So it's not down to just that, but
Okay.
But man, I was telling him, like, I don't really want to be working for people who are not going to let me be a full human being. Period.
Excellent.
That's that's kind of it.
No, you don't.
And I really view family as like the vehicle of my growth and movement toward my potential as a human being. And they are mirrors, and yeah, of course it sucks sometimes. And of course it's like frustrating and challenging, but it's the right kind of suffering though, that like hopefully, pushes me toward who I'm supposed to be.
That's so good. That's so good. I've always sensed this about you, and it's one of the things that's drawn me to want to be in your life and have you in mine, is that kind of soulful. I don't just want to be a successful musician and to hell with everything else. No way.
Right.
No way. There's a great book on writing called If You Want to Write by Brenda Euland, and one of the sentences is, life is more important than art.
Wow.
And the whole book is an incredible encouragement for people to write or be creative. It's incredible. One of the best I've ever read. It was written in 1933. She was a teacher up in Minnesota. But no, I don't think any of us want to get to the end of this ride and I don't know. I'm stubborn on thinking you can do both. Cindy used to always say, I think you can have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time.
All right.
In terms of an artful life and a relational life, because my relationships are one of the things I go after, Matt, on this podcast, is that we've kind of reduced the gauges we use to measure the success of art down to two things. And I stand by this. I think this is a fairly valid statement, that it's how famous did it make you and how rich did it make you?
Wow.
And I just think there are so many other gauges that are coming online now in a big way. Like we're saying, what about your relationships? What about relational health? Do you have friends? Do you have people you love? What about mental health? What about emotional health? Heck, if you're on the road all the time, what about your physical health?
Yeah.
So I want all of that. And sometimes I do think it makes for some tough decisions that you have to make. But in the long run, I want to be healthy, in as well-rounded a way as I can.
Yeah. I want to have the the fullest human experience that is available to me. And
I love it.
and really, like, and for me, that also means I want to work toward resolving things that have been not integrated. And I want to work toward being a whole integrated human being. And to me, that is kind of the fullness of the human experience. And because I don't know, when I was like on the road more, I started to think about this whole thing that was like, okay, let's pretend that, because I used to wonder, like, what makes guys just decide that they're going to get off the road and stop touring. And because I always thought I'm just like a lifer, because I love being on a bus. I love setting up my gear. I love sound check. I love all of it, the whole process. And so I was thinking, like, why would anybody want to leave that? And then I started thinking about, like, best case scenario as a, like, hired gun in somebody's band, even as an artist. Best case scenario is you kind of, like, you find, like, your audience, you have supportive fan base, and then you kind of, like, find the right rhythm with your album cycles, and you release your stuff, and then you go on a tour. And then probably best case scenario for most artists is we're going to do arena tours. And so, like, for a lot of the most successful artists, that's what the success is like, you can play the arena circuit. But then I thought, next album cycle rolls around, you're probably making music that is familiar enough to catch on to the same ears. You're going to go do a tour and play the same arenas that you played the tour before. And I thought to myself, how many years does it take before that is like, I'm bored to tears, I can't do this anymore, I need something different. And so as I started unraveling that, it was kind of like, this is all sort of a big illusion. It's kind of
Yes. Talk to me.
The success is just kind of all like, it's just a big illusion. And if that is kind of like the Groundhog Day of, and I mean, like, this is coming from me who, like, loves that life. But if that, I was thinking, like, if that too can become its own mundanity, then that means that there's a different answer to this kind of koan of life that is happening inside me that I need to. The answer's not out there, you know?
Exactly. And I know you well enough. If that's your thing, man, wear it out. I'm with you. I've said this over and over, I loved being on the road. I loved it.
Yeah.
It was almost magical to me that you play a show, everybody's feeling great, you get on the bus, it's fun, you're having conversation, you go to sleep, and you wake up in a new place.
Yeah.
It was like time travel or something, like, wow, how did we get to Charleston, or how did we get to Dallas? You know, it was amazing.
Oh, makes me giddy thinking about it. I love it.
It does. It is so fun. It's like Willie Nelson says, a band of gypsies. It's so fun and so free, But thank you so much for talking about this, Matt. This is really a subject I want to explore on this podcast so much, because I don't think it gets talked about, at least not publicly, a lot. But if you want the full human experience, like you just said, and you are at all conscious of your interior experience, maybe there are different chapters to explore, and maybe they don't include being a traveling musician. By the way, I don't want to let this go by. This also intrigued me with you, that here's Matthew Nelson, killer cellist, gonna play anything you can put in front of him, notation, number chart, and yet you played rhythm guitar in behind an artist, which I think there's so much wisdom there to impart, maybe to other people who play specialty instruments, that it might be advantageous to, right, maybe learn another instrument.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, one of the first bigger tours, it was like the first arena thing that I did, I was like probably the fifth or sixth person to like get called for the gig. And the only reason I got called for it is because I could play cello and guitar.
There it is.
So, and that's not to say like everybody needs to hustle and learn to play a second instrument or a third instrument, or you're not good enough unless you know 5 instruments. It's not like that, but it's a little more like a lot of the opportunities are like, they don't come dressed in exactly the right clothes that, you know, line up with the thing that I think I want to do. I didn't think that I wanted to play with a country artist. But the band that I was on the road with was kind of hanging up its touring shoes, and the opportunity for the country thing popped up, and actually not just popped up, but my friend bugged the shit out of me to send my information into the management to try to get an audition. And
wow.
So I was pretty satisfied with what was going on. Before I did that audition, I was like pretty busy and had like a lot of work. And so I didn't really care about getting the gig. And then about a week before the audition, the band called me and said, like, I think we're going to stop touring after this thing. And, and then I thought, oh, wow. All right. Well, then I guess maybe I do care about whether or not I get this country gig. And but it all kind of like, I mean, speaking of like, you know, like trying to find an answer internally, I like to think that I can like find a thread in like any sort of thing that I'm doing that I can enjoy and find value and meaning in. So like, it doesn't matter if it's the music style's like not the thing that I'm most passionate about, or I just have to find that one thing that is kind of this is my way in to enjoy this.
Well, man, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, because I think you're a fascinating study. And I'm not just flattering you. I really do. I think someone who brings a classical training along with pop music sensibilities and training in that world is such an interesting musical life to bring those two together. And man, I hope you're composing keeps growing. And is there anywhere anybody can hear what you're doing?
In that world, let's see, we've done, I work with a co-composer. So, Dan Hasseltine and I are co-composers and work on this television show called The Chosen together, and which is a show about the life of Jesus and people who followed him. And we scored and all of the, except for the most recent season of The Chosen, seasons 1 through 4 are those soundtracks are out on all the listening platforms, as well as the first feature film that we scored together, which is called The Shift. That soundtrack is also out everywhere. But and then other than that, I have a little instrumental strings duo side project called King Penguin that is sort of like neoclassical, new agey, lots of strings, and those projects are also all out on all the platforms. This is
excellent,
a gift to be able to sit and have this conversation with you. I mean, thank you for having me on here.
Well, I'm sure it'll be encouraging and a lot of great information here for anybody out there on the way up or just who wants to make music part of their lives. So thanks for doing what you do, man. Much appreciated.
Thank you. All right.
You know, someone with Matthew's range and mastery might seem intimidating, but I know Matt, and he would never want that effect on anybody. There are so many paths to greatness, and I don't know, I just reject this idea of ranking the greatest in music. One day, a Bon Iver record moves me to my core. The next, it's Mozart that stops me in my tracks. That's the beauty of it. I really hope this conversation encourages you to find the creative path that fits you, whatever form that takes. Don't be intimidated. Find your authentic voice, your style, then share it. If this conversation sparks something in you, I'd sure appreciate a review or clicking on the YouTube subscribe button. It helps others find these conversations. Thanks for jumping in with me. Now, go make something.